all of us understand that there are special people who come through our lives and our times. And certainly in my life, one of the people who have inspired me the most, a real hero, is César Chávez, a person who understood the ethic of service from the beginning of his life to his last day on earth. He understood that service to others is the rent we pay for our place on God's earth. And I really thought when I became lieutenant governor and got to meet Julie Chavez Rodriguez, who was organizing with her cousin, Christine Chavez, who's with us today, and Monica, another cousin, Chavez, along with Paul, your other cousin and brother. A lot of Chavezes are involved in this movement. They wanted to remember their grandfather in a special way, not with a day off, but with a day on, a day of service. And the family founded the Serve and Learn Foundation, Cesar Chavez Serve and Learn Foundation, because service and learning go together. And we believe in service learning in Illinois, that you can learn a lot of lessons by helping others, and in the process of helping others through cooperative learning, where you're doing this with many other people, you can teach each other and learn from that experience, especially for our young boys and girls in grammar school and into high school. And over the last 8 years, we've really had very many young people get involved in this service learning mission. And I think Cesar Chavez would be very, very proud of what we have done in his name. I think forever he said that we don't have a perfect political system in America. That's why we're always trying to have a more perfect union. We always have to strive to do better. But Cesar Chavez believed in perfect participation and involvement. And I do think this is quite important in our state of Illinois and in our whole country.
Cesar was my mom's father. I'm one of 32 grandchildren. I currently live in D.C. and work for the Department of Agriculture as the new farm worker coordinator, where we're looking at different ways to provide some of the services that the Department of Agriculture has, making sure that farm workers know about some of those services. You know, our introduction to the farm worker movement really came from my mom, Sylvia. It was really my mom who instilled in us the sense of pride that we should feel as Mexican Americans, as women, and as the grandchildren of César Chávez. So from the time we were very young, me and my sister Monica and my older sister, she would make us wear this red UFW button in all of our school pictures. And she said because while she was growing up, they weren't allowed to talk in high school, in middle school, they weren't allowed to talk about César Chávez, and they certainly couldn't wear the red UFW button. And so I think that, you know, growing up for her and her siblings, it was very tough because that was when my grandfather was starting to organize and really starting to change things. But ultimately, I think it made her a stronger woman and ultimately made us stronger women. My cousins and I and my sisters, we'd heard about the fast in the 60s, but I don't think that any of us were prepared for what was to come that summer. So that summer, at the age of 61, we saw my grandfather conduct his longest public fast of 36 days on water only to bring public attention to the pesticide poisoning of farm workers and their children. And while he fasted, week after week, we saw my grandfather go from a very active and vibrant person to eventually being bedridden, almost losing his life. And for me, it forever changed the way that I looked at him, and I've never witnessed that level of commitment and dedication in any person before or since. And it was with that same level of commitment in 1962 when he and Dolores Huerta founded the United Farm Workers Association, which later would become the United Farm Workers Union. And for more than 3 decades, Cesar led the first successful farm workers union in American history, achieving dignity, respect, and fair wages. We like to think that the farm workers created that spark that went throughout the entire Latino community. And Latinos looked and said, if it could happen in the fields among the poorest of us, it could happen everywhere, in the courts, in our political arenas, and in our schools. His motto in life, Si se puede, embodies his uncommon and invaluable legacy he left for the world's benefit. You know, since my grandfather's passing, he's been honored in so many ways. You know, in California and several other states, it's an official state holiday. There's a major motion picture now in the works about his life, and of course the U.S. Postal Service issued a stamp. And you know, every year my cousins and I will fan out across the United States, and we'll go to different dedications. We'll dedicate parks and buildings. And, well, it's important to recognize my grandfather's work. I know that many of you that knew my grandfather, you would know that he might have been a little bit embarrassed by all of these tributes, because he always wanted the attention to be on the farm workers. And I think today would be no different. He'd want us to continue to make sure that farm workers are taken care of.
But when we have somebody special visiting our state, I think it is important that we remember. And today is César Chávez Day in Illinois. We believe in Si Se Puede. We believe in Juntos Podemos. Together we can. And I think if you would come forward, both Monica and Christine, we want to give you this proclamation on César Chávez Day to make sure that we not always remember, that we never forget. And we have a lot of good people from Illinois who are really involved in things. I see Frank Avila, who's on our Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and Dan Marquez, and many, many more folks. I think it's important that we come together, and on behalf of the people of Illinois, we wanted to give you this proclamation and say to everyone here that the memory of César Chávez lives in each of our hearts. And thank you for your speech today and your attendance. Please tell our friends in Wisconsin that we believe in early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and organize. Okay? All right.